الرحيم أن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Point number 11, Al-Imam Abu Muhammad al-Barbahari rahimahullah ta'ala said, may Allah have mercy upon you. Know that the sunnah is not a matter for analogies or qiyas. The sunnah is not a matter for analogies or reasoning with examples and desires. So you should know that the sunnah is not a matter for analogies or reasoning with examples and desires, or reasoning with examples and desires are not to be followed in it. Rather, the sunnah, it is just a case of affirming the narrations from the Prophet ﷺ without asking how, without explaining, or without saying why or how. Number 12, debating and arguing and disputing. There are innovations which throw doubt into the heart if the person reaches the truth and the sunnah. Even if the person reaches the truth and the sunnah. Debating and arguing, al-khusumat wal-jidal wal-mira', debating, arguing, and disputing. They are innovations which throw doubt into the heart. Even if the person reaches the truth and he reaches the sunnah, but he does so by using the deviant way of arguing and debating and so forth and so on. Concerning these 2 points, point number 11, you should know that the sunnah is not a matter for analogies, qiyas. The meaning here of what the Imam is saying is that the sunnah is that the aqidah is not for qiyas. That's the meaning here. The aqidah of al-Islam is not for qiyas. There's no majal, there's no place in aqidah. When it comes, there's no place for qiyas in aqidah, except in very, very tight circumstances. Tight circumstances. And we'll come to that later on, inshaAllah, concerning some of Allah's attributes. If the human being having two or something is a sign of completeness, then if it's complete for the human being, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it's a characteristic of completeness in the human being, then Allah deserves the right more than anyone to have that attribute attributed to Him in that full manner, like the foot of Allah. The narration brings Allah will put His foot over the hellfire. If a human being has only one foot, something happened to his other foot, then this is a sign of deficiency in that human being. Doesn't mean he's bad, but he's not complete. People want to look at him as being someone who lost a vital part of his body. So the narrations about the foot of Allah comes in the singular form. So do we establish that Allah only has one foot? Or am I saying no? Allah has 2 feet. Although the text mentioned one, because with the human being, one foot is deficient, so with Allah Azza wa Jalla it's deficient. That is a type of qiyas, and in this qiyas, very strict, small opportunity to make qiyas. But in the aqidah of al-Islam, the sunnah here, there's no qiyas. It is totally absolute at-taslim, submitting, that's what it is. It's not for you to make analogies in the aqidah of Allah, in the aqidah of al-Islam. As for al-qiyas in the sunnah of fiqh, then this is permissible. You can make qiyas in the ahkam of al-Islam, the fiqh, halal, haram. And even in that issue, you have to be careful with qiyas and not make qiyas that is faulty. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited us that if you drink or you eat something, if you eat something that the fire touched it, then you have to make wudu. Someone asked a question, what if I warm the water up? I warm the water that I make wudu with, I warmed it up. The fire touched the water and I made wudu with that water. Does it mean that I don't have wudu because the fire touched the water? This person never heard the hadith that if something is cooked, bread, meat, or something, you eat something that was touched by fire, although you have wudu, you have to make wudu again. Even if you didn't break your wudu, you have to make wudu again. Someone said, yeah, but what if I take the water and I make wudu with water that the fire touched? So that means that what you're saying is, I don't have wudu? That companion said to him, oh, my son, ya bunayya, la tadrib lis-sunnah bil-amthal. Don't give these type of analytical points of view in the sunnah, meaning in the fiqh. So even in the fiqh, qiyas has its place, it has its way. Don't go overboard with qiyas. And those people who went overboard in qiyas, they were criticized. And they became the people of ar-ra'i, the people of the opinions. The dalil would be there, and they would use the qiyas when the qiyas wasn't permissible, was being done in the wrong way. So the point here, ikhwani, is when it comes to the sunnah of the Prophet, his aqidah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it comes to his minhaj that he was upon, the way he changed his society, the reforms that he put into his society, then this is not open for your reasoning, and it's not open for people to make qiyas, because it is just a case of affirming the narrations that came to us from the Prophet ﷺ without asking why, how, and without explaining them away. Allah Ta'ala mentioned to the Prophet ﷺ, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنِ اتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. If they do not submit to you, Muhammad, and they do not follow what you say, indiscriminately, unconditionally, if they don't have ittiba' for you, Ya Muhammad, then know they're not following you, then know they are following their ahwa, their desires. And because of this, the people of innovation are called Ahlul Ahwa, the people who follow their desires, because you're either going to follow the sunnah, the dalil, or you're going to follow other than the dalil, which is the ahwa. If they don't follow you, Ya Muhammad, then no, they're doing nothing but following their desires. And who is more astray than the one who follows his desires and he doesn't have guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He went on to say, and this is important, ikhwani fillahi, that the person follows the sunnah, the aqidah, without asking how, and without explaining it, without saying why, and so forth and so on. And the word that the Imam al-Barbahari used was without the sharh, without an explanation. And here we are explaining the aqidah. So is that a contradiction? He said we have to follow without explaining. The meaning of explaining here is without explaining the aqidah with a false interpretation. With a false interpretation. As for explaining the aqidah with the correct interpretation, but that's wajib. That's wajib. The people of desires, the people of ahwa, when they want to explain the aqidah of the asha'ira, when they want to explain the aqidah of the people who are astray, Allah Ta'ala has established that He, Ar-Rahman, is over His throne. And He used the verb is, that He is mustawin. He, Ar-Rahman, is stawa. He went above. They say that this going above means istayla, that Allah conquered. They don't accept. They give the wrong interpretation, a different interpretation. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions that He has a hand, two hands in the Quran and in the Sunnah. The person comes and explains that and he says, the two hands of Allah, the hands of Allah means His power. It means His virtues unto the person. No, that's the wrong explanation. Allah comes down. He takes that characteristic and He says, when it says that Allah comes down, the meaning of that, my explanation for that is, the rahmah of Allah comes down. This is what's not permissible. As for explaining the explanation that is supported by the Quran and the Sunnah, and the way that the companions understood it, then this is wajib, it's lazim. It's something that is from the deen of Allah. So there's no contradiction in what he's saying. The person doesn't ask the question how or why. Allah Ta'ala said about himself in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. Allah is not asked about what he does and why he does it, but the people, they will be asked. So we don't ask these questions. It's not for you to ask. And again, we told you the formula of that great Imam of the Maliki Madhab, Al-Imam Abu Abdullah, Malik ibn Anas, the great Muhaddith and the Amir al-Mu'mineen in Hadith. The world has not seen a scholar like him since his death. Rahimahullah ta'ala. He said concerning Allah's characteristics, whatever it happens to be, then the characteristic is known. The reality of it is not known. To believe in it is wajib. To ask about it is an innovation. The hand of Allah, Yadullah, Yadullah, the hand of Allah is known. The Arabs know what a hand is. That word hand in the Arabic language is not some kalima that is ghamida, mubhama. No, they know what the hand of Allah has. A hand, two hands that befit His Majesty. And His hands is not His power, His hand is not His qudra, His hand is not His fadl, His hand is not His ihsan. No, it's known. And asking about how this, that is an innovation. That's not your job. You don't find those companions asking that. When the ayat came down and the hadith explained that Allah Azza wa Jal does this and He does that, not a single companion with all of their hirs, learning the religion, not one time did they say, how, Ya Rasulullah, does Allah do this and does Allah do that? If the slave comes walking to Allah, Allah will come running to you. Those companions didn't say, how was that, Ya Rasulullah? How? We want to know so that we can take advantage of it. When it came to Aqidah, you don't find any of these questions. Not one. You'll find a companion murdered this one, radiyallahu anhum. You'll find a companion drank khamr over there, radiyallahu anhu. You'll find that. That companion over there committed adultery, radiyallahu anhu. You'll find that. But you won't find one example where the companion asks the detail about a characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? You won't find it. So the Imam in this book is encouraging us, directing us to the way of the companions. Don't ask these issues. In Egypt, I want to repeat again, Ikhwani fillah, the protests that the Muslims are protesting about. We never hear the Muslims protesting about the hukam that we're not happy with. They're spreading shirk. We don't hear that. They're helping shirk and bid'ah. That's not the issue with the ummah. The issue is they stealing the money. They have all of the money. We want to eat more. We want some of the money, which is legitimate complaints. Those are legitimate complaints. But if you had all of the money in the world, and you were able to eat all of the best food in the world, you had all of these things that you're asking for, and there's shirk in the land, and innovation in the land, there are going to be problems still. So how is not permissible? Go to the next point. The Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned, ikhwani, debating khusumat. Khusumat. Being a khasum. Having al-mukhasama. That's with a kha and a sad and a meen. Khusumat. Khusumat and arguing. Al-jidal. Al-jidal. And disputing. Al-mira. Al-mira. Disputing. These are innovations which throw doubt into the heart. The Prophet ﷺ heard some voices from his companions in the masjid. They were disputing with each other. This one would use the dalil to say his point, and that one would use another dalil to push his dalil away. The Prophet put his head out and he said, what are you people doing? بِمِثْلِ ذَلِكَ ضَلَّ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Why are you debating with the Quran like this? This is something that caused the people before you to go astray. When they took the book that was revealed, he would use a dalil to push his dalil, and then the people started to have disrespect for the divinely revealed word. So he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-mira'u fil Quran kufrun. Disputing in the Quran is kufr. He told the companions, When you sit and you read the Quran, اجلسوا ما تلفت عليه قلوبكم. As long as you're reading it and your hearts are together, sit down and continue to read. But when you start to have arguments over what it means and this and that, he said, get up and disperse. During the Khilaf of Umar radiallahu anhu, two of his companions were arguing over whether or not it was permissible for a man to wear one thobe or two thobes. One was saying, you can wear one. The other one was saying, no, you must wear two. And they were going back and forth. Arguing. When Umar found out about it, he went all the way over there and he said, what is this that I'm hearing? Two of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ arguing about this issue. You are two people that the people look at and they follow you. They're going to start arguing with each other the way you're arguing. He said, the haqq is with the one who said, you can wear two thobes and you can wear one. If you two return back to this, I'm going to deal with you with this stick. So what Umar didn't allow and what he wasn't pleased with were two of the ulama from the companions going back and forth. Both of them had dalil. And it's allowed this and it's allowed. What are you arguing over this issue for? The people who learn from you, what they're going to do, as we see with our own eyes, when those who teach us are arguing with each other about fulan is this and fulan is that and this is this and this is that, the students are going to naturally take that on board. And this has crippled a Salafi. So this type of argumentation, la yajuz, ikhwan. Something that I noticed in our masjid, and I want to give this sincere advice. We have to be careful of being of those people who we bring issues up and we keep arguing about them. The taqleed, and we're on and on about that. The issue is mudawwana. It's in the books. You're not bringing anything new, and he's not bringing anything new. You believe that this is the correct way? Present your dalil and keep it moving. Keep on stepping. And this brother does the same thing. As for, you don't like the answer, you go to the other person, the other taqleed, and we keep this going. These issues are not from what is beneficial. It's not from the way of beneficial knowledge and tulabul. So don't go overboard in issues, and don't be people who are argumentative. So concerning this issue of al-khusuma in the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, Khwani, the first word, debating, al-khusuma. If you're debating in the haqq, then it's permissible. Allah commanded us in the Quran, جَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Argue with them in the way that is best. So you sit with Ahlul Kitab or anyone else for that matter, and you argue with dalil because you're trying to get to the truth and you're trying to show the person. That's permissible. You use arguments in order to convince them. The Quran is filled with that. Ibrahim and the king who said, I give life and death. Ibrahim said to him, Allah brings the sun from the east and causes it to set in the west. Can you do the opposite of that? That's argumentation. So argumentation is permissible for the haqq. When the Prophet would get up for Salatul Tahajjud, he would wake up, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he did a number of things before he prayed, before he made wudu. One of the things that he did from his sunnah is he made a dua, Allahumma laka aslamtu, wa bika amantu, wa alayka tawakkaltu, wa ilayka anabtu, wa bika khasamtu, wa ilayka hakamtu. He used to say that when he wake up in the morning. Oh Allah, for you I have embraced Islam. I'm a Muslim. I submit it for you. And it is you who I believe in. And it is upon you that I have a tawakkul, that I rely. I rely upon you. This was his dua when he woke up, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And to you, I'm seeking forgiveness and protection. And it is because of you I argue. وَبِكَ خَاصَمْتُ. With you, because of you, I argue. So that goes to show that he would argue, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So they would come to him, they would ask him different things, the kuffar. They would ask him different things about Yawmul Qiyam and being raised up. The Prophet would give them arguments that were indisputable. So it's permissible to argue with the truth and by the truth. Was an innovation in the religion is arguing to prove your point. You're arguing and you're using the Arabic language and you're using poetry to prove your point. Allah said He created Adam with His two hands. You want to prove that the two hands means with its power. So you use the poetry of the Arabs. You use an ayat over here where the hand is meant as power, a hadith over there where the hand comes in the Arabic language as meaning power. And you're just arguing to prove your point. This is haram. This is haram. When you see people who are like that, they just want to argue with you and they're argumentative, then you should avoid them, because this argumentation, it creates problems. It makes people hate one another, makes people hate and take each other as enemies, and it creates animosity between people. And also, it'll make you change your religion. You'll be a person who's mutaqallib. One day you have this thoban, the next day you have another thoban, and then the next day you're on another thobe, because every time someone who comes with the ability to argue, you follow what they say. So the scholars used to tell the people, if you want to argue, I know what I'm doing. I know my religion. I don't have to argue with you. You go look for someone who has the time to argue with you, someone who's in doubt about his religion. What do you want to argue with me about? Non-Muslim and non-Muslim. He wants to sit with you to tell you, he says, the Son of Allah. And he wants to give you examples, how the Trinity is plausible and it makes sense. And he says, the formula is similar to the ice, the water. The water, when it comes out of the tap, it's a liquid. When you put it in the refrigerator, it becomes ice. It's still water, but it's ice. And then when you boil it, it becomes steam. That's the dalil of the Trinity. You say, you reduce your creator to some ice, water, and steam? Are those the arguments you want to give to me? And you see the person, he insists, he's not listening to you. You say, look, lakum deenakum waliya deen. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. People in the religion of Islam are like that. No matter what dalil you bring them about a particular issue, people are not going to accept it. They're not going to accept it. So arguing with people in the deen is an innovation. The Imam said in concluding this issue, that even if a person were to get the truth with argumentation, or he hit the sunnah, it's still wrong. Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. What is after the truth except dalal? It's either the truth, and everything other than the truth is dalal. Following the Nabi, if you don't follow him, you're following your desires. There's no middle ground. One of the innovative groups are the Mu'tazila. You have the Murji'ah. Those people who said, Al-Iman and your actions are two different things. Do whatever you want to do. You're still a believer. That's extreme. The other extreme is the Khawarij. If you do this and that sin, you're outside of Islam. You're not a Muslim. You're a kafir. Even if you say La ilaha illallah. That's an extreme. And then towards that extreme, I don't say in the middle, towards that extreme are the Mu'tazila. They said that the person who does a big sin, a major sin, a kaba'ir, he is not a believer and he's not a kafir. He's in between somewhere. If you ask him, where is that in between? Where is that in the Quran? Where is that at? We know the in between of the barzakh is between the hayat of the dunya and the hereafter. We know that. This in between, this ruling, where is it? There's no such thing. It's just argumentation, people using their minds. It's not permissible. Even if you get the truth with it, you've gone astray. Allah described the disbelievers in the Quran, and He said about those kuffar, مَا يُجَادِلُ فِي آيَاتِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. No one argues in the ayat of Allah except the disbelievers. They're the ones who argue. The companions didn't argue. Allah said about the Nasara from Al-Kitab concerning Isa ibn Maryam and his reality. بَلْ هُمْ قَوْمٌ خَصِيمٌ. Those Christians, Nasara, are argumentative. They're just arguing. People of Kalam. People of Islam, they don't argue. It's an issue of taslim, totally, absolutely submitting, and that's it. Just submitting. Not being of the people of Khusuma. Al-Imam Ahmed, he would describe the people of innovation like the man, his name is Al-Jahm, the Jahmiyyah from him. Al-Jahm ibn Safwan. He described him when he was asked about him, gave a ruling. He said, Kana sahib khusumat wal kalam. He was a person of argumentation in the deen and a person of kalam, rhetoric. You don't want to be of those people, because it is an innovation. We don't see this with the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam. And when it did happen, something similar to it, the Prophet was upset. There was a tribe, two women from that tribe had a misunderstanding, a disagreement, and they were co-wives. One was pregnant and the other one wasn't pregnant. The one who wasn't pregnant became upset, and she threw a rock and hit the other lady and killed her and her baby. Killed her baby. Made a miscarriage. They went to the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to sort the problem out. He said that the one who killed the baby, this lady who killed the baby, her awliya have to pay the blood money. The man, one of the men from her awliya, he said a rhyme with some very difficult Arabic words that I don't know at this time, because I haven't read that hadith in a while. But he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, with this ruling, how is it that a person who didn't scream out and is not alive and he gets the money as you have ruled? And the way he said it rhymed, the sentence rhymed. Right there off the top of his head, he made that rhyme. And what he said made sense. You can understand what he was saying. Ya Rasulullah, how is it that the one who didn't scream out because he's not living, he's not alive, and now he's dead, how can he get this money? And the way he said it was a rhyme. The Prophet became upset and he said, your rhyme, that rhyme of yours, is from the Quran. That's from the soothsayers, that stuff you're saying. That stuff that came off of your tongue is from what soothsayers say and how they are. Because the man, he used his intellect in the place here where it's not the place for that. The Prophet gave a judgment, a ruling, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's just for you to say, I hear, no, I obey. I hear and I obey. Don't use your qiyas. Don't use your qiyas. I wish I would have gone back to find out how he mentioned those words so that the Arab brothers can have a... We have crickets in here, or is that a telephone? That's a telephone, right? Inshallah, we'll get that as well. Brother Harun, please remind me to get that hadith, inshallah, about the lady from Hudayl who killed the other lady's baby. We want to narrate the hadith correctly to you, brothers. So the point here, Khwani, that it is not permissible to use these forms of methods from Ahl al-Bid'ah to arrive at the truth or to defend the truth or to dispel falsehood. It's not permissible. Do it the correct way, because after the haqq, there's nothing but what is astray. So we're going to stop here on these two, inshallah. We'll take any questions concerning the dars today, ikhwani, the dars today. If you brothers have any questions, comments, you can put them forward now concerning our dars. هل عندكم شيء؟ أيوة أخي أنيك. Now, there are a number of ahadith, ikhwani, about the impermissibility of debating and arguing in the deen. Some of those ahadith talk favorably about the one who disregards and abandons arguing, and some of those ahadith tell us about the wa'id, the threat for the one who holds on to argumentation. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ana زعيم في بيت في ربض الجنة لمن ترك المراء وإن كان محقا. I will be the guarantor to the person. I will put him in the best part of Al-Jannah if he leaves argumentation, even though the truth is with him. He is on the truth, but he doesn't want to waste his time arguing with this individual. That shows the virtues of abandoning argumentation, and it shows the sincerity of the person who can do that. Many people, when they argue to show their muscles, to defeat the person. Some people learn with the goal and the objective of refuting. He's practicing now, and he came out of Deobandiyism, he came out of Brahwiism, he came out of Sufism, and he's happy to be on the Sunnah. But everything that he reads Everything, he reads it, and when it is for him as a dalil against someone, that's what sparks an interest to him. But reading for his own hidayah, to be close to Allah, he doesn't have that. As for the hadith that the brother is mentioning, the Prophet says, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, من تعلم علما مما يبتغى به وجه الله لا يتعلمه إلا لأن يستر في المجالس وأن يباهي السفهاء ويجادل العلماء فالنار النار النار أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Anyone who learns knowledge that should be learned for the sake of Allah, anyone who learns knowledge, and he learns this knowledge to sit in the majlis so people can be, wow, look at him, he sits in the front. He learns it so that he can get a place. Or he learns it in order to argue with the ignorant. Or he learns it in order to argue with the scholar, the one who knows. He said, the hellfire, the hellfire, the hellfire. Because he wasn't sincere. He wasn't sincere. He should learn the knowledge in order to better himself, to practice that knowledge, to call to that knowledge, to defend that knowledge. And those other issues, arguing and so forth, those are secondary issues. The primary issue is for him to learn and to acquire the knowledge so that he can practice it, and then the other stuff falls into place. But he learns the knowledge to argue with it, but he doesn't do it himself. The Prophet said, an-nar, 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 showing the emphasis of this particular issue. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the nar, and may He protect us from this issue, which is a kabira from the kaba'ir, because he threatened the person with going to the hellfire, and we don't want to fall into those things that are in contradiction to the deen. So I say to the young brothers, and I remind myself, knowledge is not to be acquired in order to make the people look at you. And who are you? Who are we? Who are we? Knowledge is not to be acquired in order to debate people. Your friends, your cronies, your companions. Knowledge is not to be acquired, and the goal and the objective is to refute your opponent and your enemy. There's no barakah in that knowledge. There's no barakah in it. So we ask Allah Ta'ala for ikhlas and save us from those ways of people of destruction. Any more questions? Akhi Ismail, Abu Ismail. Concerning ikhwani, debating with people who you know that you're not going to change their mind, there are two positions with this from the Kitab and the Sunnah. One position is what Allah Ta'ala mentioned, فَذَكِّرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرِ. Remind them if the remembrance benefits. So we understand if it doesn't benefit, don't remind them, leave them, don't waste your time and your effort. So if you know that the person is arrogant, haughty, stubborn, it is not hiding knowledge and concealing knowledge to say to him, I don't have time for this, as the Imams did in the past. But what if you're debating with him to expose his ignorance and guide the people around him? This is permissible. This is permissible from a number of adillah. One of the biggest dalils is that young boy who, Bukhari and Muslim, he was learning magic. He was learning magic from the magician. But on the way to learning magic, he met a man of the deen in the past from Bani Israel. He met a rahib. When he sat with the rahib and the man of the deen started teaching him the religion sanctioned by Allah, he was impressed and he realized the haqq is with this man and not with the king and the magic of the magician. So after leaving that man of the deen, he will go to the magician. The magician said, where you been? You were late. Until finally they found out his reality. So they said, let's kill him, because he's dealing with the man of the deen who's threatening us. He can expose us. So they tried to kill the boy. Tried to throw him off of a mountain. The mountain shook, the Prophet said, knocked the soldiers off. They took him out in the water. Were going to throw him out of the water. The boat shook, the people fell out of the boat. The boy said to the king, if you want to kill me, do what I tell you. Call all of the people, invite all of the people, tie me up to the tree, and then let the archer, take the archer and let him say, Bismillah Rabbil Ghulam. In the name of Allah, the Lord of the young man. If you do that, you'll be able to kill me. So they did that. When they shot the arrow in his neck, the Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bismillah, the Lord of the young man, went in his neck, and he died. The people around said, La ilaha illallah, and they became Muslims. This hadith is used for a number of issues, some of which we don't talk about right now. We don't talk about some of them right now. Al-Labib bil-Ishara yafhamu. He practically killed himself in order for wider good. So he exposed the king's dawah and the falsehood of his dawah for the sake of all of the people who are around. This type of debate is permissible. As for the opposite happening, where you're debating and your debate causes the people of the sunnah to doubt the sunnah because the person of a tashayyur is stronger than you and more eloquent than you and he's tying you up, then that debate, don't do it. The person who is Salafi, he debates an individual who is Khalafi and on some bid'ah. And because of that debate, the people on the sunnah look at that and they say, oh, he overpowered him. Then that debate shouldn't be done. So Allah Ta'ala commanded, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Argue with them in a way that is best. So that way that is best is determined by dalil, proofs that you can weigh the situation. So that is something that is permissible. So debating is from the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, but it has its do's and it has its don'ts. It has its people, it has its etiquettes, its adab, and it's not for everyone. Again, I want to repeat to the young brothers again. Be careful about being of the people who all we do is debate, debate, debate. Debate, debate, debate. And Imam Sufyan al-Thawri used to say, if people sit, regular people, if you sit for a long time, you come to my house, we're having dinner, we're hanging out. He said, if you sit for a long time together, shaitan is going to have something to do with the majlis. Shaitan is going to have something to do with the majlis. One of the things that shaitan has to do with the majlis sometimes is the people just start debating, pushing back your dalil, push back your dalil, push his dalil, so forth, so on. So this is something that has to be careful. Beware of going overboard and debating. But debating for the haqq is from the deen. Debating for the haqq is from the deen. One of the best books that was ever written in Usul al-Fiqh by Imam al-Shafi. What's that book called? Imam Shafi's book in Usul al-Fiqh. What is it called? Kitab al-Risala. Came as a result of debates between him and the great Amir al-Mu'mineen in Hadith and the Muhaddith Waqi' ibn Jarrah, or Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi. And they were going back and forth, giving the proofs of this and that and this and that. After everything was said and done, Imam al-Shafi said, it's worth making this into a book. Because he, on one hand, was able to take whatever he was receiving from him, and the other man, on the other hand, had that same ability. As for you give your opinion and you push his opinion away, this is something that should be avoided, and Allah knows best. Inshallah, we'll try to do something about the ways of debating properly. Can you remind me of that, Anik, Akhi? Huh? I want to do a class soon about some of the things to consider that makes the debate correct and incorrect. So it's not open-ended haram, open-ended halal. There are etiquettes, time, places, people for it, and so forth and so on. Okay, Ikhwani, we're going to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Akhi Ibrahim from Gambia, the last question. Only because you're from Gambia. And the Sunnah is spreading amongst the Gambians. And we're happy to see the Sunnah spread any and everywhere. But in West Africa, our ancestors, our forefathers, they came very, very far away from the Sunnah. So we're happy to see that many young brothers and sisters from Gambia in Birmingham, other than Birmingham, have embraced a da'wat al-Salafi al-Mubarak. That is the da'wat al-Haqq, al-Islam al-Musaffa. تفضل يا أخي إبراهيم. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam legislated for us that if something is touched by the fire, you cook bread, meat, soup, if the fire touches it and you eat it and you have wudu, you have to make wudu again. It breaks your wudu. At that time, it's been abrogated. It's been abrogated, not now. That's a good question, Ahi, because I didn't realize that. I didn't clarify that. So there was a time if you ate something and the fire touched it and you have wudu, it was naqid of your wudu. It was from the nawaqid of al-wudu. Like camel meat breaks your wudu. Passing wind breaks your wudu. Urinating breaks your wudu. So when the companion narrated this hadith, the one who never heard it before, and he was a companion, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, never heard it before. He said, do you mean to tell me if I made wudu with water that was warmed up by the fire, as we do in the morning, it's cold, so they would warm up the water and make wudu. Do you mean to tell me that I don't have wudu because the water touched the wudu? The fire touched the water? He told him, don't push the sunnah away with these types of amthal. لا تضربوا بالسنة الأمثال. Don't do that. Don't do that. The sunnah is التسليم. إنما كان قول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا. Don't do that. That's the meaning of the hadith and the incident. That the person was using this type of jidal and mira to say, I don't understand how this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So the scholars of Islam, like Al-Barbahari, were saying that the sunnah is not for your qiyas. It's not for you. It's taslim. So Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Ta'ala speaks in a way that befits His majesty. It's not for you to come and say, if Allah speaks, that means that He must have teeth, He must have a tongue, He must have a larynx, A'udhu billah. Don't do that with the sunnah. Allah said, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. Allah spoke to Musa and He emphasized it with a ta'keed. The masdar of a ta'keed. What are you coming to say all this? No, I don't accept that because it would necessitate that Allah has this and that. How can you make those lawazims on Allah? How is that? That's the point. That's the point. So even in fiqh, don't use the qiyas the wrong way. And that's one of the reasons why Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala was criticized by many of the ulama of al-hadith for the way that he would do qiyas like this in issues where there were texts. And again we repeat, Khwani, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, when defending Al-Imam Abu Hanifa in his book Majmu' al-Fatawa, he said anyone who believes that Al-Imam Abu Hanifa intentionally made qiyas just to go against the hadith, then that individual should make tawbah to Allah, because Al-Imam Abu Hanifa is above that. He's above that. Intentionally he has a hadith, he knows, he understands, then he's going to make qiyas. One of us, we won't do that inshallah. How someone on the level, the deen and diyana and the taqwa of Al-Imam Nu'man, Abu Hanifa, how is he going to do that? So when we mention this, we don't mention it making a tanaqqus, bringing him down, hasha lillah. When we mention anything where a scholar in this regard, I don't take everything that sheikh says. That sheikh is not ma'soom in the minhaj like you think. You're talking about people turn around because of the new salafiyya that people are upon. They say, you're against the sheikh, you're against the ulama. You speak about the ulama. La ya akhi, that's ghulu. Don't have ghulu in your deen. As-salafiyya is with i'tidal and insaf. I'tidal and insaf. We don't talk about the companions, we don't talk about the ulama, we don't talk about the people of virtue with the goal and the objective of putting them down. But if you mention this person is Bani Adam and he made a mistake here and there, and you can't say that the person is against them, but we have to have adab. So that's the point, Akhi Ibrahim. Okay, when we're going to stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Asking Allah Ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and to give us the thabat in the deen and thabat in the dunya and the thabat in the qabr and thabat yawm al-qiyamah. Hada wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ibrahim, Yaqub, you guys read the book before you come, okay? Just 1 and 2, that's all. Come on, you alright? ما وصلتني ايش كتبت فيه؟
ارسلت رسالة لعندك تلفوني قلت لي من الذي سوف يهاتفني؟
Who was that? Oh, he's not here. Ayman. Ayman, how you been, Akhi? I haven't seen you around, Ayman. Can we meet tomorrow for that thing?
What time?
Dhuhr time.
No, the guy Shafi, the way she was
Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi. Yeah, he's Amir al-Mu'mineen.
There's only 10 of those altogether. Any chance you could get me those? Who there?
Yeah, Sheikh, write it again.